Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are presenting on the Andrea Yates case, the tragic story that shook the nation and challenged our understanding of mental illness in the criminal justice system. The case provides insight into how untreated mental health conditions can have catatonic outcomes. We'll discuss her background, the mental health struggles she faced, the events that led to her actions, and the broader impacts of this case. Our aim is not to just understand what happened, but why it happened and what it reveals about mental health and the law. Andrea Yates was a mother of 5 living in Houston, Texas. In June 2001, she committed an unthinkable act. She took the lives of all 5 of her children in the family bathtub. Her children were Noah, aged 7, John, aged 5, Paul, aged 3, Luke, aged 2, and Mary, just 6 months old. What happened that day shocked the public and became the center of intense media attention. However, what many people didn't realize was that this tragedy stemmed from a severe and untreated mental illness known as postpartum psychosis. Andrea's case raised significant questions about maternal mental health and forced the legal system to confront complex issues of insanity and criminal responsibility in new ways.
Andrea Yates was born on July 2nd, 1964, in Hoswell, Texas. She was one of 5 children to her mother Judah and her father Andrew. They raised her and her siblings in a deeply religious household. These beliefs would heavily influence her adult life and the values that she held near and dear to herself. She was a bright girl and graduated as valedictorian of her high school class of 608 students. She was captain of her high school swim team, president of the National Honor Society. Overall, this was a young girl with a promising and bright future ahead of her. There was a history of mental illness within her immediate family. 2 of her siblings were diagnosed with depression, and a third one was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She married Russell Yates in 1994 at the age of 29. However, before she became a mother, she was a nurse. And she was a highly regarded nurse at MD Anderson Hospital, located in Houston, Texas. After 8 years of working, however, she did resign after the birth of her first child. And this began Andrea Yates' path towards isolation and her losing the support system that she had in place. They had 5 children in a short period of time, putting a lot of pressure on Andrea as a mother. However, as her family grew, she was determined to make it work and to be the best mother that she can be. Andrea Yates homeschooled her children at the demands of her husband, Rusty Yates, and he wanted the children to be homeschooled because he didn't want them to pick up on bad habits that he must have sensed were at the public school. Either way, this put more pressure on her. Andrea Yates' mother herself stated that after the marriage, her daughter lost much of her identity and just really let Rusty make all the decisions, and she would just follow along. Andrea's best friend was a lot more critical of Rusty Yates. She called him controlling, that he was critical himself, and very demanding of her. Either way, this shift increased her stress, but it also led to even more isolation, and her support network shrank. But however, as stated before, Andrea Yates was determined to do it all. She wanted to become supermom. Many people and eyewitnesses at the trial stated that Andrea Yates was a wonderful mother. And when news was being reported what she'd done, it shocked many people. No one could have predicted the dark path that Andrea Yates was going down. After each childbirth, her mental health declined further. She was showing symptoms of postpartum depression, and this just intensified with each child that was born. Andrea's mental health decline was gradual but severe. Her first signs of postpartum depression emerged after the birth of her first child, but by the time her 5th son, Luke, who was born on February 25th, 1999, her mental health took a turn for the worse. She felt overwhelmed and was depressed. Satan wanted her to kill her children. She just knew based off a feeling that she had. On June 18th, 1999, she attempted her first suicide attempt. And she tried to do that by overdosing on medication. She would rather take her own life than risk taking her children's lives. This was also her first psychiatric hospitalization, and her second one only happened 5 weeks later when she attempted to slit her own throat. During this tumultuous time in her life, Rusty and Andrea still tried for a baby, resulting in her only daughter Mary being born. But the psychiatrist who was treating her at the time strongly advised against it due to the high rates of recurring postpartum depression that Andrea Yates kept facing. She had 2 more hospitalizations after the birth of her 5th child. Uh, Before the 4th hospitalization, she filled up a bathtub with water, and there was no clear explanation offered by Andrea Yates. She just stated that she might need it. Um, when During her hospitalization, she talked about having suicidal thoughts. She really focused on not being a good mother. This decline in her mental health against was gradual but severe, and she showed on multiple occasions how she felt, how it showed. She called herself a fat pig, thought that she was a horrible mother because she gave her children too much candy, um, and she felt that the TV was criticizing her. Um, when she was released from her last hospitalization on May 14th, 2001, her mother-in-law came to help, and she was paranoid that her mother-in-law was there to watch her and judge her about how she was parenting her children. No one would have, the signs were all there, and yet no one at the time could have guessed to where this would have led her next, what she would have done next. For about a month and a half leading to the incident, Andrea Yates struggled with the thought of whether or not to take the lives of her children. She was fixated on the biblical verse from Luke 17:2. And this verse states, "It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown in the sea than that he should cause one of the little ones to stumble." She correlated this verse to her failure as a mother, how she failed to make her own children respectful and righteous. The crime occurred on June 20th, 2001. On the day of the offense, Rusty left for work around 9 a.m. and Andrea was not expecting for her mother-in-law to come until around 10 a.m. to help out. Within that hour, she drowned her 5 children in the bathtub one by one. From there, she called 911 to report what she had done. Then she called her husband to inform him that it's time, referring to the biblical prophecy and revelations about Armageddon. When the police arrived, she told them that she had killed her children and led them to where she left them. She was aware of the criminality of her actions. She knew that she had done something illegal. However, her psychosis, the delusion within her mind, she was convinced that the act was morally necessary. Andrea Yates believed that Satan was within her and that it tormented her and her children. She thought that she would be arrested and executed right away. But at least in Andrea Yates' beliefs, Satan would be executed alongside her. She did the righteous thing by drowning her children and keeping their souls out of Satan's hands.
In the case of Andrea Yates, she was diagnosed with 2 major mental health conditions at the time of the murders. The first condition that was considered for Andrea Yates was postpartum psychosis, a severe mental illness that affects some women after childbirth. Andrea had been told by her doctor that it was in her best interest to no longer have children, but ultimately had another due to her husband. Individuals who suffer from postpartum psychosis have symptoms that include hallucinations and paranoid delusions that often include themes of harm, or as seen in Andrea's case, salvation. In August of 1999, after being discharged from her second hospitalization over a suicide attempt, Andrea was given the diagnosis of major depressive disorder with psychotic features. This diagnosis reflected her long-standing episodes of depression that would be intensified by her psychotic episodes of Satan wanting her children. These conditions, described together, altered her perception of reality, leaving her to believe a twisted version of what was right. Both diagnoses given to Andrea Yates align with the necessary criteria listed within the DSM-5 TR for major depressive disorder with psychotic features and postpartum psychosis. Andrea displayed symptoms of long-standing depressive episodes, delusions, hallucinations, and paranoia regarding her children and religious themes in which she believed that Satan was inside of her and wanted her children, causing her to believe that the only way to save her children from Satan and hell was to kill them herself. Psychiatrists for the defense in the case explained how her psychotic state at the time of the murders had taken over her ability to recognize reality. It was explained that Andrea's actions were not malice, instead that her actions were driven and made to be logical by her untreated conditions. Furthermore, it was also said that Andrea's distorted perception of reality caused her to believe that her actions were her only choice for protecting her children and necessary.
The Andrea Yates case left a lasting legacy on multiple fronts. First, it brought much needed attention to maternal mental health, specifically the dangers of postpartum psychosis. This illness, while rare, can have devastating effects if left untreated. Second, the case influenced how mental illness is considered in legal defenses, especially when evaluating criminal responsibility. Finally, Andrea's story sparked important policy discussions about the need for better mental health support systems, particularly for mothers facing postpartum struggles. The tragedy highlighted the gaps in our mental health care system and underscored the need for early interventions to prevent similar crises. To conclude, Andrea Yates' case illustrates the severe consequences of untreated postpartum psychosis and the urgent need for accessible mental health care. Her distorted reality came from her illness, which had progressed due to not having proper intervention. This case serves a sobering reminder of the importance of mental health support, particularly for mothers, and emphasizes the need for compassion and understanding in our response to mental illness. If anything, this tragedy teaches us to look deeper at the individuals behind these actions and recognize how critical mental health care is to prevent similar outcomes in the future. The Andrea Yates case demonstrates the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the urgent need for women to seek professional help and support, particularly during vulnerable periods like postpartum. Yates experienced severe psychosis and postpartum depression compounded by societal stigma and isolation, which led her to hide her struggles from even her healthcare providers. Despite multiple hospitalizations and clear signs, inconsistencies in her treatment and a lack of sustained support contributed to the tragic outcome. This case emphasizes the importance of early intervention, consistent mental health care, and the greater awareness of postpartum mental health risks. Families, communities, and healthcare systems must work together to provide emotional support, education, and practical resources for women facing mental health challenges. Ultimately, the Yates case serves as a powerful reminder that untreated mental illness can have far-reaching and tragic events, underscoring the need for compassionate and proactive approach to mental health care. This is our reference page, and thank you for watching.